January 1996. I'm still working at Illyria Arts, framing pictures. Still dating the woman from the blood bank, but not for long. And I read some books back in January of 1996. Let's jump right in and take a look at what I read back then. And the first thing I read in January of 1996 was I, Asimov by Isaac Asimov. It's his memoir. He's my favorite science fiction writer. I've said that before. And he has such a great, accessible style, and that carries over into this book, where he talks about his life, talks about his contemporaries writing sci-fi, talks about politics and religion and marriage and divorce and just all sorts of things. I believe this is the book. In the back is a list of everything he'd written, and this was when I found that he had written so much more, if I remember correctly, so much more nonfiction than actual fiction. He's got tons of fiction out there, but just tons and tons and tons of nonfiction stuff. Even somewhere in this house is Asimov's Guide to the Bible, which I started reading, and it, again, if memory serves, it's essentially what was going on in the rest of the world during the events, or certain events anyway, of the Bible, since most of that takes place in a small area. But anyway, that's not the book we're talking about. I, Asimov. Highly recommended if you're a science fiction fan, if you just want to read a great autobiography or memoir. As always, I don't know what the hell the difference is. But let's move on to book 2, which was The X-Files Ground Zero by Kevin J. Anderson. I thought I had this one. I just checked where all my X-Files books are, and I didn't see it. So I'm going to have to keep my eyes open next time I'm at half-price books. I thought I had all the X-Files novels. But in this one, a nuclear scientist is found dead. Mulder and Scully are called in to investigate. Things aren't what they seem. Government conspiracy. You know how it is. It's the X-Files. Kevin J. Anderson's a good writer. It's a decent book. All right, now, this is where things are going to get a little crazy. Or not. If you're a regular viewer of this series, there's going to be 4 books here that you've seen before. But I was in a mood. And so, the third book I read in January, 1996, was the God Wolf manuscript by Robert B. Parker. This is the first of the Spencer novels. A manuscript is stolen from a college. Does it tell me what college? Boston University. There's a murder. Spencer has to investigate. This was the second Robert B. Parker, technically, book that I read. The second Spencer book I read. Because after reading Early Autumn, which was the first one I read, I started reading them all in order. Starting with the first one. And I was hooked after Early Autumn. This just pulled the hook a little deeper. Great, great stuff. And then the next book that I read was God Save the Child by Robert B. Parker, the second of the Spencer books. Kid goes missing. People think he was maybe a runaway until a ransom note shows up. Spencer gets called in, and I had forgotten. I looked at the back of this to remind myself what this was about, but I forgot about this one particular character, Vic Haraway. A crazy bodybuilder. Like a murderous bodybuilder. As soon as I read the name, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this character. Really interesting, fun character. But again, Spencer, especially the earliest Spencers, are just fantastic. And then the next book that I read was Mortal Stakes by Robert B. Parker, the third Spencer novel. And in this one, yeah, this is the Major League pitcher, I believe. Yes, Boston Red Sox pitcher who might be throwing games. Spencer's called in to investigate. The pitcher's wife has a mysterious past. Let me go back for a minute. One of the things I liked about these books, in the God Wolf manuscript, the dean of the college, maybe his personal assistant, back then secretary, making eyes at Spencer. At the end of the book, he gives her his number. So then, in God Save the Child, Spencer is casually dating that character from the previous book, but it's in this book that he meets Susan Silverman, who will eventually become the love of his life. I don't know. I haven't read any of the Spencer books since Robert B. Parker died, so I don't know where their relationship has gone. But this is where he meets her, and so he's dating. Basically, he's dating both Susan Silverman and the young woman from the first book. Not exclusive with either one of them. They all understand that. This book, I remember, I believe he takes... Is he still dating? He takes one of them to a baseball game. I can't remember if he's still dating the two of them in this, or if this is where he starts to settle down with Susan Silverman. But I loved the progression of the characters and their relationships in this series. So, Spencer, investigating baseball. Then we moved on to something else, and I really wish I had a copy of this book. It doesn't even matter to me. It doesn't have to be a first printing or anything, although it does have to be that has to look like a first print. They printed it a few times in a certain edition, kind of like how I want these editions. I want that book to look like a first edition. It's just a paperback, and it was Star Wars: A New Hope by George Lucas. It's his name on the book. I wonder if he had a ghostwriter. Never actually looked into that. But it's the novelization of the movie Star Wars. And it, if I remember correctly, there is content in it that's not in the movie, as there tends to be with novelizations when they come out around the same time as the movie, because, again, movies get edited, the novelization's being written from other material. But I may be confusing it with the comic, because I know the comic has stuff in it that didn't make the final cut in the movie. But either way, it's Star Wars: A New Hope. And I actually checked one of the later editions, and Han Solo shoots. We always say Han Solo shot first, but Han Solo's the only one that shot. He just straight up shot Greedo. But anyway, Star Wars: A New Hope by George Lucas. And I followed that up with Star Wars: Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster. The first original Star Wars novel. Obviously not an original edition, because it says classic up here. I wonder if it says legends on the new editions of it. It has an introduction by George Lucas. Now, apparently, in this book, Luke and Leia still fighting the Empire. They're looking for, I think it's spelled differently here. It says they're looking for the Kyber crystal, which will make anyone who wields it, it'll give them amazing powers over the Force and make them nearly invincible. But I think it's spelled differently. The Kyber crystals are the things that power the lightsabers. I think they spell it differently in canon. But so Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, along with R2-D2, C-3PO, looking for a kyber crystal, and they have a run-in. At least Luke does. There is a lightsaber duel between Luke and Darth Vader in this book. Now, allegedly, Alan Dean Foster was told to write this in such a way that they could reuse a bunch of the sets and things, all the stuff that was already done for the first Star Wars, because they didn't expect Star Wars to do, or didn't know that Star Wars would be such a huge hit. Didn't think they would have a big budget for a sequel, so they wanted to be able to use this as the material for the sequel. And so this is just stuff I've read and I've heard. I can't say that it's true, but Exhibit A, that George Lucas did not have a plan when he made the original Star Wars. But a lot of fun. Especially, I mean, this is pre Empire Strikes Back. This is when Star Wars fans were clamoring for anything. You can find Star Wars material anywhere and everywhere nowadays. But this was the shit back in the day. All right, I followed that up with The Tay of Piglet by Benjamin Hoff. And this was the follow-up to The Tao of Pooh, which is a book I love. And I believe Tay, I just checked, I always thought it was Day, because Tao, T-A-O, is Tao. But according to what I looked up online, they said it's pronounced Tay. I don't know. But apparently it means virtue. So the virtue of Piglet. And it was fine. It was interesting. I liked the Tao of Pooh more. I would reread. I've read the Tao of Pooh more than once, and I would read it again. Maybe I'd reread this just to see if I felt the same way about it. I think Benjamin Hoff covered what he needed to cover in the Tao of Pooh. But it's still an interesting little book, especially if you're into Eastern philosophy. Followed that up, the penultimate book for January 1996 was Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back by Donald F. Glut. And of course, this is a novelization of the second original Star Wars movie, Episode 4. So apparently I was not only in the mood for reading all the Spencer books in order, but I wanted to read the Star Wars books in order. And yeah, I mean, if you know the movie, you know the book. And so the final thing that I read in January of 1996 was Promised Land by Robert B. Parker, the fourth Spencer novel. This one has to do with real estate, and I think a wife goes missing, a guy owes money to a loan shark. I believe this is the book that introduces the character Hawk. Great character. And I also believe that this is the book where Susan Silverman basically asks Spencer, what their relationship is. Is it going anywhere? And he proposes to her. And she's like, whoa. I just wanted to know if we were like in a monogamous relationship. I don't need to get married or anything. Settle down, pal. But again, another one of the great early Spencer books. Good stuff. Such great characters. And they're quick reads. He's got such a snappy writing style. You read one of these in a day. So that's it. That is what I read. It looks like 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 books I read in January of 1996. Maybe that's why my relationship isn't going to last much longer. So there you have it. A brand new year. A bunch of old books that I'd already read. Not all of them. I hadn't read The Tay of Piglet before, or Asimov or the X-Files one, but all the Parkers, the Spencer books I'd read, the Star Wars stuff I'd read. And I'd like to get those, at least the original Star Wars novelization again. I don't care that much about Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, owning copies of those, but I would like to have a copy of the first one. And I've seen it at Half Price Books, and I haven't picked it up. And then, of course, when I'm thinking about it and want to get it, they don't have it, of course. All right, question for this video. I've asked about people rereading things. Don't know. I could ask about your general... There we go. We're going to go crazy here. This isn't even going to have anything to do with books. What is your general life philosophy? For me, first of all, I've mentioned this before on various videos. I am an atheist. I believe in nothing that I can't prove with my own eyeballs and my own earballs. Science. I'm an atheist. But I am fascinated by Eastern philosophy, not religion, but philosophy, which is why I enjoy books like The Tao of Pooh, or things like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, that kind of thing. What it boils down to for me, in the simplest, super simple terms, I think people should be free to do whatever makes them happy. Do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, as long as you don't hurt anybody else. That costs $10 extra. Yeah, I don't understand why people can't just live their lives, be happy, leave other people alone to live their lives and be happy. It seems relatively simple to me. And of course, as I said, that's a very general kind of thing. Let's say, well, appropriately enough for the time period that I'm talking about, if you're in a bad relationship or if you're unhappy in a relationship, don't stay in it because, well, I don't want to hurt anybody. That's just being ridiculous. Get out of that relationship. Yes, you might hurt that person, but they'll get over it and it's going to be better for everybody. You got to use common sense, folks. But just, do what makes you happy as long as you're not hurting anybody else. That's why I spend as much time as I can eating pizza rolls and reading books. Because that's what makes me happy. What about you? What is your sort of general life philosophy? Let's get to know each other a little better. Let me know in the comments below, because I couldn't think of a better question. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. This is not the Low Budget Review Show. We do try to be polite on my channel in general. Please like, share, and subscribe. All that YouTube stuff. And if you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.